When I prepared for Kol Nidre services, the very first year that I was a rabbi, I found this prayer. The prayer was written by the late Leo Beck, great liberal progressive rabbi in Germany in 1935. Following the service, he was arrested and sent to Terezin. He wrote the following, and I have always seen it as an inspiration for myself at this moment. Take away my shame, lift my anxiety, absolve me of my sin, and enable me to pray before thee with gladness of heart, to pursue thy commandments and thy Torah in the joy of holiness. Grant me to bring happiness to all thy children, to exalt and ennoble thy faithful, to spread goodness and mercy and blessing in the world. Humble the arrogant, who have tried to pervert me with falsehood while I sought my happiness in serving you, O God. Save me from weakness and from faltering and from every evil trait. Illumine my eyes with the light of your deliverance. Help your people. Imbue the heart of your people with reverence and with awe before your majesty. Strengthen them with your love. Guide them to walk in the path of your righteousness. Kindle in their hearts the light of the holiness of this day of holiness, and bring them to possess the inheritance that you have given them. Speedily, speedily, in our time soon. Good Yontiv, everybody. Gmar Chatima Tova, and welcome back. This moment is different, and we always feel that. As we say regarding a different holiday, this night is different from all other nights. We're together, we are looking to return, we're looking for atonement individually and as a congregation as we begin a fast day. We feel that it is austere and we feel that it is serious. One of the unique elements of this evening and this day is we know that we're not here for ourselves alone. Rather, we're here for each other, and we're here to create a different future for ourselves, for each other, and for our community. And we know we don't do any of that alone. And the public nature teaches us that we share in the responsibility for wrongdoing. It's not a time for me or you, it's a time for all of us. We're told that confession and forgiveness can liberate us. It can free us from the mistakes of the past and that which weighs heavily upon us, and that can give all of us hope. Truly, one of the most powerful, kind, and beautiful of all notions was expressed in the beginning of the service. We're given permission to pray with those who have sinned. The beauty is found in two different ideas. One is that no matter what we have done, we can pray together and we can ask for forgiveness and find it. The other is that you and I should not be too judgmental for who are the sinners, if not us. We all make mistakes, we're all imperfect, we hurt others, and that's the price of being a human being. And whether we are here every single day of the year or at this one moment during the year, we are here and we are welcome. We'll say, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu. We abuse, we betray, we are cruel. You may not see yourself in any of those categories or in anything in the litany of the Al-Khait prayers, but someone you know is. So a statement is being made that wrongdoing may be the act of an individual, but it impacts every one of us. Others are affected by the decisions that we make. We don't live alone, so it goes both ways. We contribute to the conditions of our society, and we have responsibility for others. The great Hasidic master told the story of a man in a boat who bores a hole under his seat. What's wrong, he asks, as everyone starts yelling at him. I'm only boring the hole under my seat. We are social creatures, and our tradition informs us that we are responsible for one another. You know, I think I've told you this before. What does it mean when the rabbi takes off his watch? Nothing. When we're finished with the litany of sins and confessions, which mostly have to do with our personal behaviors, we then do a confession about the mitzvot, the commandments, and ritual obligations that we have failed to fulfill. And you'll note that section pales in length or impact with the personal reflections that we recite. It's as if the tradition realizes that its purpose, is to allow all the ritual to create better human beings. So when each one of us is better, we're all better. Well, I want to speak about something that has created a lot of conflict within me over the last number of years, and it became really clear to me this year. And I want to take this admission to hopefully inspire acts that will help us strengthen our future. There are many incredible, important obligations and prohibitions in our Torah. We know them. We don't murder. We don't commit adultery. We are to feed the hungry. And those are really clear. They involve personal behaviors and communal responsibilities. But there's a commandment that's found in Deuteronomy that says, Lo lehitalem. It means that you shouldn't remain indifferent. It's a commandment whose implications are profound. Indifference may allow all wrongdoings to succeed. When there's a need to help, we're obligated to help. When it's time to call something out, we call it out. We don't remain indifferent. This mitzvah may have been seen in the eyes of Elie Wiesel as the most important of all, for obvious reasons. Throughout my adult life as a rabbi, I've spoken out in the context of this tradition when I have perceived injustice, and I've always done so in relation to Jewish values as I have internalized them through my learning. But it's been rare for me to critique any segment of our own people. And there are a few reasons why. One is that as a people, we have suffered a lot. And so I, like so many of you, have a deep need to understand that Jews have a great need for unity. We're a small people, and we have a deep history of oppression. If we don't stand for each other, we're aware that there are times throughout history where nobody stood for us. That's been our experience. The challenging downside has been that if one offers critique, he or she then can be accused of being a self-hating Jew. And I know that the commitment for unity has been pretty ironclad. We're responsible for one another. I also value tolerance and respect for difference. Pluralism is a central value in our tradition. We find it in our Talmud. But the question needs to be asked, how tolerant does one remain for those who are intolerant? How much understanding do we give to those who do not wish to understand us? To those who won't give legitimacy to our institutions, our schools, our shuls, our rabbis? I have remained silent in the face of those who denigrate essential Jewish values for their own narrow, tribal, national, and theological triumphalism. My authority as a rabbi has been dismissed after legitimate conversions which I have officiated at. We have friends who live in Israel who are married but not considered to be married by the rabbis of Israel because they were married by conservative rabbis. We know there are synagogues and schools in Israel that don't receive state aid because they belong to the Masorti movement or Reform movement. We know that women are forbidden to read Torah at our holiest places or sing in communal celebrations. One of my mantras in Jewish life has been rooted in the catchphrase of our movement, tradition and change. And just as we understand that we must preserve tradition and revere it, history has taught us that we've always embraced meaningful change. So let me share a little bit of history by way of background. It's incomplete, but it's important. Since the end of the 19th century, all of us and our ancestors from Western Europe and America have been challenged, influenced, and enriched by the period of human history known as the Enlightenment. It was a movement that had to do with human thought and behavior. It was articulated by philosophers and leaders and thinkers who were concerned about human reason and political stability. It was a movement that challenged existing power, kings and tyrants and landowners who often oppressed the masses and those who were different. The Enlightenment gave birth to ideas, many of which became the foundation of civilization as we know it, including American democracy and liberalized Europe. The ideas were found in notions and words that we hold dear, like liberty and equality, like the inherent rights of an individual, like the pursuit of truth through science and understanding human nature. And there were religious implications that had to do with the acceptance of people who were other, different faiths. It had to do with placing limitations on the power of the church and the rejection of authority, particularly in that realm, the freedom to practice the faith of your choice, or none at all. And this is reflected in literature and art and religion. Amongst our ancestors, there grew a call to critically study foundational texts, questioning their authority, understanding them in the light of history and with new knowledge. And we learned that there were different sources of the Bible. The modern Jews saw this as a way to preserve Judaism. We could save it from mythical thinking and medieval behavior. We could allow Jews to be a part of an evolving world. To be a Jew was not merely about what you believed in, but it was about the people you belonged to and what the people created and what the people valued. It was the time that gave birth to both Reform and conservative Judaism. We learned that we could be Jewish and we could be modern. We could be Jews and we could be a part of the world. A little later in history, our people realized that even when they were not religious, their difference was the cause. A little bit later, our people realized that even if they were not religious, their difference was the cause of their denial into society, and it reflected danger. So Herzl gave birth to modern Zionism and a new way to view the Jewish people, a people that would return to an ancient homeland, later defined by its Declaration of Independence. We grew a nation that would promote the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants, based on precepts of liberty, justice, and peace, taught by our prophets. It would uphold the full social and political equality of all its citizens, without distinction of race, creed, or sex. It would guarantee full freedom of conscience, worship, education, and culture. It will safeguard the sanctity and inviolability of shrines and holy places of all religions. All of this was part of a whirlwind of change that our people and the world experienced. And then there was the Shoah that turned traditional Jewish theology on its head. We clearly began to understand that we had to be the agents of our own freedom. Enlightened thought stood in direct conflict with many traditional Jewish ideas. Today, this very day, there's a contemporary West Bank rabbi who wrote, "If it is new, it is bad." For most of us in my work, Judaism needs to be open. It needs to reflect democratic principles. It needs to continuously be subject to interpretation, willing to engage with others, and diverse thought. But along the way, I learned that there are those who were literal in their understanding had no tolerance or respect for us. Their way was the only way, the authentic way. They have an expression, it's called Torah true. And I remain silent through it. I remain silent because of the unity of our people. But as things in societies, here, Eastern Europe, and Israel began to fragment, and people in general became much less tolerant of each other, values that define meaning, values that define our tradition, were getting lost. Ultranationalism and its power over the minds of masses and the suppression of those who thought differently were becoming a dominant force. The very traits that caused immeasurable suffering to our people when we lived under autocratic regimes began to come from Jews themselves. The autocracies that created so much pain for us in Europe and other minorities was now being perpetrated by Jews. And sadly, it is seen in Israel and by the extreme forces that threaten the democratic nature and meaning of Zionism and Israel. I'm no expert on judicial reform or all the political challenges in Israel, but I do see what's happening in relation to religion, religious thought and behavior. And in it, I see glimpses of past destructions. We have stood for Judaism and the Jewish people, all the Jewish people, as we have stood for Israel, and now we witness the threat to a modern Judaism and Jewish people, which is ours to protect. We see the decent democratic nature of our nation, the nation we love, being threatened. And please note, this is not because of a majority. This is because of a small minority of fundamentalists, religious Zionists, ultra-Orthodox, and Haredi Jews who were needed to form a coalition to create power for the government. And that's why we have seen over 7 million of our people, 7 million of our brothers and sisters, patriots, IDF reservists and veterans, former heads of Israeli security forces, politicians, bankers, the startup nation people, students and intellectuals, women and men, centrists and liberals protesting in the streets of Israel. Ultranationalism supported by religious fundamentalism is a great danger to freedom. And we must note that as democracy is a gift to the world and humanity, it's been one of the greatest gifts to the Jewish people because we've only thrived in democratic nations. And ironically, it's being threatened in Israel, perhaps the only free nation in the world right now where conservative Judaism is denied its full rights. There's a theocratic expression of Jewish supremacy and ultranationalism. Religious pluralism is gone. Non-Jewish, Christian, and Muslim Palestinian citizens are experiencing terrible discrimination. There is abuse taking place throughout the territories. and the thought of working towards two states has become heretical, as Palestinians are denied their dignity. This year, you and I saw news clips of what Israeli forces themselves described as a pogrom, perpetrated by both rabbis and cabinet members, as Jews were davening Mariv and homes were being burned. Fundamentalism can create terrorists even amongst Jews. Fundamentalism destroys reason, common sense, and also holiness. The cabinet member recently referred to the Temple Mount had it wrong. He said, "If I see it as holy, then it is mine." But the reality of holiness in our tradition is that if it is holy, no human being can possess it. And this was the same cabinet member who had an enlarged poster of Baruch Goldstein hanging on his wall. This past week, there was a religious observance the day after Rosh Hashanah. It's called Sum Gedalia. It's a fast day, the fast of Gedalia. Who's Gedalia? He was a Jewish king killed by a Jewish zealot at the time of the first temple. The thought of a Jew killing a Jew, frankly, shakes our essence. That fast day has taken on much greater significance in our own times after the murder of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. He was murdered by a Jew, a student from a yeshiva, motivated by the teachings of his rabbi. And Rabin, a hero, a warrior, assassinated for his desire to lead our people towards a new chapter of peace. So here's the thing. The religious world, the Jewish world, cannot be defined by fundamentalists. We have a religious worldview that has to be sustained and strengthened with pride. And I stand here feeling guilty as a rabbi for my silence because I feel as if I saw it coming, but not now. And I know that also, at the end of the day, I cannot change others. I'm not in a national conversation. I can only change myself. I can change the nature of the work I do to build a fair, respectful, creative, open, loving synagogue that respects the values of democracy and our tradition. Our eyes are open to the world, and here we educate each other about the struggles in Israel. And over the next few weeks, you're going to hear from those who are working for democracy and those who continue to work for the betterment of humanity. You'll hear from those who are working for religious pluralism and freedom and seeking to end conflict. And as the movement for freedom and democracy in Israel grows, we know that Israel will be stronger. You know that Israel was never intended to be a big shul. It is the homeland of our people. Moving forward, we cannot and will not lose our attachment to Israel as we learn about her struggles. In fact, I hope to increase that attachment here. We cannot allow our love to lessen. But like any love, there's got to be honesty and critique. We're watching and we're joining the fight for the neshama, the soul of Israel. You know, the ultimate value in Judaism is life, and the penultimate value in Judaism is freedom. This time calls for reflection on the community and the Jewish life that we have built here. There is and there has always been a place for a diaspora that's rich and meaningful. And a strong diaspora strengthens Israel, just as a strong democratic Israel strengthens us. There's a clear and powerful call to sustain this synagogue and the Jewish community, to strengthen our federation, which is rooted in the values that take the responsibilities for life. I think we have to double down on our support for B'nai Torah. It's because we want our children to experience beauty and the meaning of life and what Judaism has to offer it. Because we want our kids to be here. We want them to feel the creativity that can be experienced with an open, free Jewish expression. And we want our grandkids to be proud Jews. Over the last few decades, we have worked relentlessly, strategizing and executing a Jewish life that's creating a strong community, a strong synagogue, that's obviously compassionate and caring, that brings beauty to ritual, that creates compelling programs responding to our people and to the larger world. We're not uncomfortable separating myth from reality. We're not uncomfortable using the narratives of our past to enrich the conditions of being Jewish and being a human being. We're open and we're welcoming. My teacher, the late David Hartman, once said, "If what you do in Jewish life doesn't make a difference beyond these walls, why do it?" And it's been a test for me in my words, in my teaching, in my supervision of staff, in my life. Does what we do make a difference? If you have looked at or participated in our adult education program, our authors series, if you've seen who's come for our scholars programs, if you have seen the films that we offer in that series, our holiday programming, and have seen who has been here and who is coming and what we do, you see that it makes a difference in this world. And if you've noted the work of TLC and the support we give to the elderly and to mourners and to young parents, then you see our commitment to religious community is powerful. We have a story that is being told, and that story will grow. And that story is the story of an open Jewish community, open in thought and open to all people. You know, Boca Raton is a place that is and is going to define, one of the defining places for the future of American Jewry. And I know that's a bold statement, but the religious life of the future of the American Jewish community can be defined here through our work and through our values. We will continue to grow a thoughtful, pluralistic congregation that has a meaningful narrative about Jewish life, that's open to all families, that educates children with joy, that welcomes our kids into our schools and our early childhood program with warmth and love. Our schools here are not secondary to our mission. Our children are central to it. And our schools have never been larger, as you heard, or more full of spirit and passion. I don't know if you know this, and if you're interested, call to hear about it. But we have revolutionized afternoon Hebrew school. And so our numbers continue to grow, and the attendance is higher than it's ever been. And we bring podcasts to the youngest parents, helping them with the issues they're most concerned with a Jewish values spin. And we have programs based in nature that celebrate Shabbat. We have teenagers coming here learning with their parents in family education. And we also have teenagers who work with younger children, and they serve as models because they show kindness and they give alternatives in a pretty insane popular culture. We bring people of all faiths together to strengthen our community. And as you know, we feed the hungry and shelter the homeless, and we lead the communal partnerships in response to natural disaster and social injustice. It's all stuff you have to be really proud of, and I am. I'm very happy to share with you that this year we're starting the very first Bar Bat Mitzvah program in our county for students with special needs. We are doing and we are living what it means to be Jewish. And we are not coercive. And we don't exclude people because they believe differently than we believe, or they observe differently than we observe. we are welcome, and we as a little community serve as a model. As you might imagine, space is a problem for us, and so we're going to be growing this all. We aspire to create a center for young families. We'll develop infant care. We'll create a central place for teenagers, a place for teenagers in a physical home for TLC. We have a new program now, a program for grandparents and great-grandparents who are going to be provided the skills and language and programs to be able to share with their grandchildren so that generations can share the beauties of Jewish celebration and Jewish life. And it's not just for our grandparents, but will be for all grandparents in the area. This is a story of a synagogue that welcomes and honors all. This is a synagogue that takes the words of the rabbis, Derech Eretz Kedma LeTorah. Respect for human beings comes before anything in this tradition. We're a synagogue that preserves the best of the past, but's looking to the future. We value and invest in aesthetics, music, and worship, and we remain committed to that which is essential, learning, daily prayer, and tzedakah. We can't sit still. We need to go le'ela u'le'ela, higher and higher, and it's got to be a big partnership to happen. We need you to create your legacy here that's going to continue this work. In truth, then, we'll strengthen Israel and we strengthen the Jewish people when we create a community like this, the community that you support. This is perhaps the most important thing that we can do. We're showing the Jewish world that we can be just as we are, with the winds of freedom blowing through here, the winds of acceptance being a part of us. I hope all of you will become a greater part of this holy work, both for the year ahead, but also the long-term future for many years to come. So you'll be hearing more. Each one of us will have a part to play. It is because we are all responsible for each other, and we're all responsible for the future. Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be sealed for a good year. Chazak v'amatz. Let us be strong and let us be courageous. Let us affirm who we are. Let us remain committed to help the Jewish people, to help Israel and those fighting for its soul and its democratic nature. Let us be hopeful that what we do will matter in the future. Shana Tova, everybody.